All right, everyone, welcome back to my channel. um, so we're gonna get started with the human. Of course, I have everything open, so I can't read anything. The human body. Daniel, do you want to start recording this presentation?
It started already.
It's being
Oh, awkward. Okay. So the human body, as a lot of you know, is made up of many systems. So we're going to start off this session by taking a systematic approach to it and breaking it down. So without further ado, we have an opening activity. So what I want you guys to do in breakouts, so we're gonna have another breakout session. What I want you guys to do is look at these words. I would say like take a picture or take a screenshot. I would say picture and try to organize these words in different categories. So using biological categories, how would you divide these words into separate, I said categories already, but how would you divide these words? For example, don't use this, but for example, you can divide it alphabetically. You can divide it by color. Using what you know from biology, how would you divide these terms? Like, I'll just give another example that'll be a little better. I would say you can divide it through systems. So the stomach, that would also go hand in hand with absorption, so on and so forth. So in your breakout groups, I want you guys to just discuss with each other of different categories you can divide it. And then when we reconvene, we'll talk about those categories that you chose.
2 minutes later.
Structure. So from those terms, the structure and functions, we have the eyes, lungs, gluteus maximus, which is also our butt, urinary bladder, brain, stomach, blood, kidney, umbilicus, and cells. And for function, mitosis. I was going to say meiosis. Mitosis, support, gas exchange, hemopoiesis, digestion, movement, excretion, absorption, reproduction, and respiration. So those of you that were able to divide it into structure and function, great. Those of you that didn't and did it into other ways, that's excellent. So that's a really good point that I want to bring up. There isn't always one way to look at things. You can always look at things at different angles, and that doesn't mean you're incorrect, which is why I wanted to know what you guys divided it into. So good job, everyone. So next we're going to talk about anatomy versus physiology. Some high schools or some secondary schools, you have anatomy and physiology class. So this might be a little bit of a review for you guys, but some of them don't. So what do we mean by anatomy and physiology? So structure-wise, which is the anatomy part, it outlines the structure, the shape and organization of body parts. And there's two types of anatomy, gross anatomy and microscopic anatomy. Gross anatomy is what you see without a microscope. So you don't really need a microscope to look microscopically. And microscopic anatomy, as the name entails, is too small to be seen without a microscope. So you need a microscope in order to see the cells. Function-wise, that's the scientific investigation of the process of living things, the parts of the body work. So again, we have the central motif kind of here again, structure equals function, relationship. So depending on the structure of certain anatomical body part, the function of it would be different. So for a perfect example of this is like bones. Our bones come in many different shapes and sizes. Depending on the different shapes and size, that would affect the function. And I think that's all I have to say about that. Main topics in anatomy. So for gross or macroscopic anatomy, which are the structures examined without a microscope, we have regional, systematic, and surface. So regional is dividing the body in regions. Systematic is dividing the body in systems, so like nervous system, digestive system. And surface, meaning that we have the external form in relation to deeper structures as an X-ray in anatomical imaging. Microscopic anatomy, structure seen with a microscope. We have two main types, cytology and histology, which is cellular anatomy and study of tissues. We're going to briefly go over histology today. And throughout the semester, or throughout the seminar, or throughout the Saturday program, we're gonna go through two main types of systems, which is gonna be the cardiovascular system as well. We're gonna touch a little bit on the pulmonary. Well, that was repetitive. We're gonna touch a little bit on the respiratory system. So, topics of physiology. It reveals and demonstrates the dynamic nature of living things, considers operations of specific organs. Some examples are provided below, which is cell physiology, neurophysiology, cardiovascular physiology. As the name, as the name entails, it examines that thing. So, like the first one, cell physiology, examines the processes of cells. Neurophysiology, the nervous system. Cardiovascular physiology, the heart and blood vessels. So in biology, mainly, a lot of the names are kind of self-explanatory if you break it down. So always breaking down a really big word into smaller words helps you understand the overall meaning. Anatomy, physiology. So we have in anatomy and physiology, we have something called pathology. I think Daniel touched on this very briefly when he was going over the course outline. It's the structural and functional changes caused by disease. So we're gonna have a seminar one Saturday about it. So now we have structure and functional organization. So with this, I think we're going to launch a poll. Let's see if I can do it from here. Yes, I can. So we're going to launch a poll. It's going to be questions 1 through whatever. I think it's 7. Yep, 1 through 7. And I want you guys to pick the best answer choice for each of these terms. So I'm going to launch it now. So a poll should pop up on your screen. So number 1 is referring to letter A. So what does letter A look like? I'm just going to give you guys a little hint that starting from letter A to letter G, it goes from small to big. So just think of that. So I'll give you guys a minute or so to answer those. And feel free to ask any questions in the chat box if you have them, or feel free to unmute yourself. Okay, it looks like we have some activity. Awesome. It looks like we have some right answers. So guys, keep it going. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I think we'll wait until like at least more than 50% of people voted. So make sure you're voting so we could move on to the next thing. Right now, just so you guys know, right now we're at like 44%.
Also, guys, you don't be afraid to vote on the poll because it's all anonymous. We don't know who chose what.
Yeah, so even if you don't know the answer, just feel free to vote, and we're going to talk about it right after the poll ends. And as Daniel said, it's completely anonymous. Is there a typo? Is there a typo where? In the answer choices? Oh, you see it too. Do you know which question or answer choice? I see it. Yeah, I see it. I literally saw it as soon as you said it. Yeah, that should be Oregon. For question number 5, that should be Oregon. Okay. Excellent, guys. You guys are doing great. Looks like majority of you are getting the right answer too. So I'm going to give it about 30 more seconds, and then we're going to go over the answers. I think it shows the answers to you too. Oh, we're at 88%. Come on, guys. Let's do 90. By A minus. I just need one more person. Just one more. I'm like so OCD. All right. I guess we're stuck with 88%. So I'm going to end the poll now. And I'm going to share the results. So as you can see, letter A, the correct answer is atom. So we're moving from the smallest unit to the biggest unit. So we're starting off with an atom, which is letter A. Then letter B would be a molecule. So different atoms combine to make a molecule. Then those molecules, when they combine, they create something called a cell, which is the basic tissue unit. Then letter D would be tissue. So all the cells come together to create a tissue. Sorry, my audio does not work and I'm having trouble reconnecting. I recommend exiting Zoom and then rejoining Zoom. See if that works. So letter D, when cells come together, it creates a tissue. Then when tissues come together, it creates an organ, which is letter E. Letter F, when organs come together, we create an organ system. And last but not least, letter G, when all the oh, I lied. Letter F. Yeah. I don't know what's wrong with me. When all the organ systems come together, we create the organism. So, for example, we'll start off with an epithelial cell. So when all the epithelial cells come together, we create, for example, columnar epithelium will create the stomach. So when the stomach comes together with the small intestine, large intestine, we create the digestive system. When the digestive system comes together with the nervous system, so on and so forth, we create the organism. All right. Thank you guys so much for participating. Greatly appreciate it. And now we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming. Okay, there we go. Oh my gosh, it's literally like here. Okay, great. I was doing, okay, great. So here's the labeled parts if you guys want to take a look. So we have, let me just put this here. We have the atom, molecule, cell, tissue, organ system, last but not least, organism. And for those of you that like flow charts a little more, here's a flow chart of it. So divided on a chemical level, we have atoms and molecules, and on a cellular level, we have cells. I think I went over each of these already, but a cell is the functional unit of life. And then when cells come together, we create tissues. And then when tissues come together, organs, so on and so forth. Why am I losing my voice? That's gross. All right, so now we're going to talk about the human body organ systems. So I'm going to have the chat open. So I want you guys to be interactive yet again. I know I'm annoying. So I think you guys can see my pointer. So I'm just going to hover over one of them. And I want you to name the body system that I'm hovering over. So for example, this one. What organ system is this?
The muscular system.
Excellent, the muscular system. What system is this?
The skeleton system.
Skeletal system, perfect. Which one is this? My favorite one.
Digestive system.
Digestive system. I'm gonna say my favorite one. That I use the most. Which one is this?
Nervous system.
Nervous system, this one.
Cardiovascular.
Cardiovascular. Let's see, this one.
Respiratory.
Respiratory. We'll do this one.
Urinary system.
Urinary. These two.
Reproductive.
Reproductive. And I left the harder ones for last. So this one.
Integumentary.
Integumentary, perfect. This one. I got you guys. This one would be endocrine. I didn't get you guys. Last but not least, we have this one.
Would that be the immune system?
The immune system, so also known as the limbic lymphatic system. I always mix it up. The lymphatic system. I was gonna say limbic. So great, you guys did excellent. I didn't expect you to get those last three, especially the last one. But throughout our time together, we're gonna really explore these systems. As Daniel said, for the next like 11 or 10 weeks, we're gonna explore the cardiovascular system and a little bit of the respiratory system mainly. Oh, and here they are. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna just dive into each of them, and I'm gonna give a brief overview of the structure versus function. So let me just move this over again. Okay. So the skeletal system, structure-wise, we have the bones. So as you guys know, our skeletal system is made up of bones. We have the appendicular and axial skeleton. Axial skeleton is basically our cranium and our spinal vertebral column. And in all the bones, everything else would be our appendicular. So everything like our arms, our legs, that's our appendicular skeleton. Also part of our skeletal system, we have cartilage. There's three types of cartilage. We have fibrous, hyaline, and elastic. The one that people talk about the most is hyaline cartilage, because that's what we find in between our joints, and that's what babies are made of, when they're born. And then it ossifies. Next, we have ligaments and tendons. Hopefully none of you tore any of these, but ligaments connect bone to bone and tendons connect muscle to bone. Then we have joints. We have fibrous, cartilaginous, and synovial, and osseous cells. So osteoblasts, osteoclasts, osteocytes, and osteons. So we're going to go over those, I believe. Actually, I think we're going over it. I'm not 100% sure, but those are the main functional cells of the skeletal system. Function-wise, the skeletal system helps support our body, so helps us like basically walk and stand upright, provides a basis of movement, protection, protects our internal organs such as our heart, our lungs, through our rib cage, hemopoiesis, which is the formation of red blood cells, which comes from long bones, specifically the bone marrow within the long bones, and then mineral storage. All right, next we're going to move on.
Before we go on, I just want to kind of touch base on those pictures, because that's pretty cool. I'm a bone guy, so what you're looking here is at a mandible, so it's the lower jaw, and then if you look very closely, some teeth have those little black dots. Those are actually cavities. And then if you look at the top spinal cord, the vertebra, which is the bones of the vertebral column, are fused. And that's another type of condition, which we'll get to next semester if you come join us then. But go ahead, Josh.
Thanks for jumping in. All right, so now we're going to move on to the muscular system. Again, as I said, we're going to break it down from structure and function. So the muscular system is made up of, muscle. There's three main types of muscle. We have skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and smooth muscle. Skeletal muscle is, examples of skeletal muscle is the biceps, bright guy. So just, our biceps. I have nothing there, so don't worry. The pectoralis major, and then the gluteus maximus. I am not gonna show you where that is, but I think you can use your imagination. Cardiac muscle, we find cardiac muscle in the heart, hence the name. Smooth muscle, an example where we can find it is the digestive tract. Something that you want to keep in mind with these muscle types is it has different functionality. It functions differently depending on which muscle it is. Like for example, skeletal muscle is voluntary, meaning that we can move it on our own free will. Cardiac and smooth, we don't really move, so it's involuntary. Things happen without us actively thinking of, all right, I have to make my heart beat 150, no, whoa, not that much. I have to make my heart beat like 70 beats per minute. And I have to make sure I move this food down my esophagus, into my stomach, turn it into bile, make a bolus, move it to my small intestine. We don't really have to think about that. So the smooth muscle does that automatically. Muscle composes other major body systems. So as we talk about the different systems, we're gonna notice that all these systems are integrated. So they talk to each other. They always convey Oh, okay. So I have a time warning, so I need to stop talking. Okay, so function. So function-wise, muscle contraction shorten, and it provides support and heat production for our body. Next, we have the cardiovascular system. So on the left-hand side, we have the hearts. It's cut in half so you can see it, the inside, the valves and the ventricles. So structure-wise, the heart, the cardiovascular system is made up of heart, arteries, veins, and capillaries. Function-wise, the heart pumps blood throughout the body, as all of you know. Utilization of blood as a medium to carry nutrients, waste, as well as gases. It also carries white blood cells and chemicals that protect the body. So the lymphatic system, lymphatic system, as someone mentioned, is our immune system. So structure-wise, it's made up of our lymphatic vessels, lymph nodes, spleen, tonsils, thymus, and bone marrow. Function-wise, recovers fluids for tissue drainage, cleans the blood, and houses cells that are involved in immunity. So here's a picture of someone whose lymph nodes are not functioning properly. And if you take an x-ray, you can see that the bone structure is perfectly fine, but the drainage of the lymph nodes is not happening. So we have the, oh my gosh, I can't think of the word, but enlargement.
Lymphedema.
Yeah, thank you. So basically we have the enlargement of our, the right leg. Next we have nervous system. So structural wise, we have the central nervous system, peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system is made up of the brain and spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system is made up the nerves as well as sensory receptors. Function-wise, it responds to external and internal signals and is divided into the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. And it also coordinates activities of other organ systems. So the smooth muscle contraction that happens automatically, that's due to the nervous system. This is my favorite section, I guess, of the body, organ system of the body. So stay tuned for more of that. Next, we have the endocrine system. So structure-wise, we have the pituitary gland, thyroid gland, parathyroid gland, adrenal glands, thymus, pineal glands, ovary, and testes. Functional-wise, we have the function-wise, it directs long-term bodily changes using hormones, growth, reproduction, and food use. Integumentary system. Structure-wise, we have the skin, which is made up of the epidermis, dermis, and subcutaneous tissue, temperature, pressure, and pain receptors, and keratinocytes. So the thing that gives us, so the thing that's also in our hair, our nails, is also found in our skin. Function-wise, it protects, cushions, waterproofs, secretes salt and urea, and regulates our temperature. Respiratory system, structural anatomy-wise, we have the nasal passage, the pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli, lungs, and diaphragm. And as you can see, we have the lungs inhaling and exhaling. Function-wise, we have the delivery of oxygen, which which happens in the alveoli, and inhalation and exhalation. So let's see, digestive system. So the digestive system, as a lot of you know, structure-wise, is the oral cavity, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, which is made up of the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Large intestine, which is made up of the ascending colon, descending colon, transverse colon, and sigmoid colon. Then the rectum, anus, and the liver and pancreas adds certain digestive juices as well as other things needed for digestion. Function and physiology, it processes food, absorption of organic nutrients, minerals, vitamins, and water. All right, so we have two more. So this is the urinary system, which is made up of the kidney, ureter, urinary bladder, and urethra. Function-wise, we have it excretes nitrogenous waste or nitrogen-containing waste, which forms from when protein is broken down, urea and uric acid, maintains water and salt balance, and controls the pH of the blood. So really important. And then we have the reproductive system. So it's a little different between males and females. So males have testes, which produce sperm, which is spermatogenesis, scrotum, penis, accessory glands, and duct systems. Females have ovaries, which produce eggs through oogenesis or oogenesis, uterine tubes, uterus, and the vagina. And here we have a little animation of which one's more important, the egg or the sperm. Functional wise, production of sex cells and hormones to reproduce offspring. So really important for reproduction and carrying on the generation, I guess. So 8 life functions. I'm just going to go through these really briefly. So there's 8 main things that life needs to function. So barriers, separating the inside from the outside. Movement, so being able to move. Responsiveness, so our nervous system does this, where we're able to respond to external stimuli. Digestion, so taking in food and making that into energy. Metabolism, excretion, so removing those wastes. Reproduction, so creating offspring, and growth, increasing in size. So I think I'm gonna skip this, which is the tissue types, but I'm gonna go through it very, very briefly. So there's 4 main tissue types, which is connective tissue, epithelial, nervous. Go through this later, but I just want to briefly go over it. We have connective tissue. So here are some examples, which again, connective tissue connects different body parts. We have muscle tissue, which we talked about, which again could be either voluntary or involuntary. Epithelial tissue, which lines the exposed surfaces and lines body cavities. And then nervous tissue, which is important to help convey messages from our brain to our other body parts. So general orientation of the human body. Anatomical position. Anatomical position. I'm just gonna, okay. So when the body is erect, meaning it's standing up, that's part of the anatomical position. You need to be facing forward, so head straight. Okay, feet together, and then palms facing forward. This is called the supine position. So this is anatomical position. So supine is laying face upward, and then prone is laying face downward. So those of you that play Call of Duty, I know Call of Duty is coming out with a new game, Cold War. So when you're prone, that means you're like on your stomach, ready to snipe someone. That is the prone position, being on your stomach. So anatomical body planes. We have sagittal, this is mid-sagittal, which is the middle of our body. Those of you that are into zodiac signs, we have Sagittarius, which is half man, half horse. That's how I remember it, it's divided in half. We have medial and lateral. So going towards this midline would be medial, going away from the mid would be lateral, proximal and distal. So from our arm, if we're going more towards the medial part of our arm, that will be proximal. If we're going further away, that will be distal. And then we have the coronal plane. So coronal meaning that you're cutting this way. So just imagine like I have a crown on my head, we're cutting this way. Also known as the frontal plane. It's divided into 2 parts. So if we're cutting the body this way, well, this way in half, we have the ventral or anterior part, and then we have the posterior part or the dorsal part. And then last but not least, we have the transverse plane, which divides our body from superior. Oh, let me just put it there. From superior, which is here, and then everything below that would be inferior or caudal. So I'm just gonna briefly go over this because sake of time, we have like 30 seconds left. But we have different body cavities that we're gonna go over. So just looking at this diagram, 1 would be our cranial cavity, 2 would be our thoracic cavity, 3 would be our abdominal cavity, 4 would be our pelvic cavity, and combining 3 and 4, we would have our abdominal pelvic cavity. Combining 2, 3, and 4, we would have the ventral, we would have the ventral body cavity. And then here we see B, that would be where our spinal cord would be. And that is called the vertebral cavity, where the spinal cord is able to go from the brain all the way down to the sacral region. Here we have the mediastinum. So since this, oh, you can't even see. Since this is above the heart, this is going to be the superior mediastinum. These would be the pleural cavities, so where the lungs are. And then D would be the pericardial cavity within the mediastinum. And then dividing the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity, we have the diaphragm here. All right, guys, thank you so much for sitting through that. Sorry I had to rush a little bit. In the upcoming weeks, we're really going to explore the respiratory system and the circulatory system, mainly the circulatory system, the cardiovascular system.